You are 29 years old, dried up. Nobody is lining up for you. Marry Mateo so we get the second installment. At least then your womb will have some usage value for this family. You do not sign. Grandma dies, and we will tell everyone you pulled the plug. I stood in the freezing hallway outside the intensive care unit, staring at the reflection of the fluorescent lights on the vending machine glass. The hum of the medical machinery behind the double doors was the only sound in the world. My father, Lawrence, cornered me against the wall, his breath smelling of stale coffee and desperation. My mother, Raina, stood a few feet away, checking her lipstick in a compact mirror, as if she were about to walk onto a stage rather than into a funeral. They were not asking me for a favor. They were appraising me. To them, I was not a daughter. I was inventory, a depreciating asset to be liquidated to cover their bad debts. Grandma Leona had 48 hours to live without surgery, and my parents had just slapped a price tag on my life to pay for it. My pulse did not spike. The urge to beg died in my throat instantly. I looked at my father, really looked at him, and realized the man I had spent my entire life trying to please did not exist. In his place was a broker selling a damaged car. I nodded. Once. A cold, mechanical acceptance. And in that silence, I began to calculate the cost of my freedom. I am a logistics manager for one of the largest shipping firms on the East Coast. My job is loss prevention. I look at complex systems, identify leaks, and seal them before the ship sinks. I analyze liabilities and assets, calculating risk to ensure every ounce of inventory is accounted for. It is a skill. Raina and Lawrence look like the perfect American success story. They live in a sprawling house in Connecticut, drive German cars, and wear Italian wool. But if you look at their ledger, they are a house of cards built on maxed-out credit and delusion. They do not own wealth. They lease the appearance of it. And for the last decade, I have been their unpaid auditor, silently fixing their tax messes and negotiating overdue bills, believing that if I worked hard enough, I could stabilize them. I was wrong. You cannot stabilize a black hole. For 3 years, I lived in a studio apartment the size of a closet. I ate instant noodles 5 nights a week. I skipped vacations and wore the same winter coat until the lining shredded. I did this to build my freedom fund. I saved exactly $75,000. Every cent was a promise to myself and Grandma Leona that one day, we would buy a small condo and escape the chaos. I thought that money was my exit strategy. I did not realize my parents had already spent it in their minds. Here is the math of their betrayal. 6 weeks ago, my cousin Mateo approached them. Mateo is not really a cousin. He is a distant relative with cash and an expired visa. He wanted a green card and was willing to pay $100,000 for a sham marriage. My parents accepted a $60,000 deposit without asking me. They did not save that money for Grandma's failing heart. Lawrence took $30,000 to pay off arrears at his country club to avoid expulsion. Raina took the other $30,000 to save her Porsche lease from repossession. They spent $60,000 on appearances before they even mentioned the marriage to me. They did not ask me because they knew I would refuse. But they spent the money because they were certain they could force my hand. They looked at my discipline and savings and saw an insurance policy. They believed I would always be there to clean up the spill. Standing in that hospital hallway, I realized the truth. I was not their child. I was their overdraft protection. And they had just made a withdrawal that was going to cost them everything. I drove to my office at 3 in the morning. I went there because it was the only place where the rules made sense. In a warehouse, if a pallet is rot, you discard it. You do not paint it gold. I sat in the dark, illuminated by my monitors, and dissected my parents. How could they spend stolen money before the fraud was even committed? It is the sunk cost fallacy, twisted into entitlement. They believed my compliance was a fixed asset. They thought they owned me so completely that they could spend the profits of my slavery before I had even put on the chains. They were not criminal masterminds. They were addicts to validation and luxury. And like any addict, they would burn the furniture to keep the house warm for 5 more minutes. I realized I had been asking the wrong question. Not, how can I save them? But how do I survive them? They were liabilities. And in my line of work, when a liability threatens the company, you liquidate it. I picked up my phone and dialed my father. He answered immediately, panic in his voice. Roxanne? I will do it, I said, my voice flat. He exhaled in relief. Thank God. I knew you would see reason. I knew you loved Grandma. I do, I said. But I have conditions. I do not trust you with the money, Dad. You already spent the deposit. I am not letting you touch the final payment until Grandma is on the operating table. I want a meeting. Tomorrow. Noon. You, Mom, and Mateo. Mateo is busy. Lawrence hesitated. Then he does not get a green card, I countered. I want to negotiate the remaining $40,000 directly. If I am selling my life, I want to make sure the check clears. There was a pause. I knew he was thinking I was finally speaking his language, that I was just as greedy as he was. Okay, he said. I will set it up. A conference room downtown. But Roxanne. No tricks. No tricks, I lied. Just business. I hung up. I did not feel guilty. I felt the cold clarity of a soldier. The daughter was dead. The logistics manager was in charge now. The bank opened at 9. I walked to the teller and slid my withdrawal slip across the counter. $55,000. I said. Certified cashier's check. The teller looked at my balance, $75,000, accumulated over 3 years of sacrifice, and then at me. That is a large withdrawal. Are you closing the account? No, I am making a payment. Who is the payee? St. Jude's Cardiac Center. I watched the paper slide out. $55,000. That piece of paper was my freedom. It was the condo I would never buy. It was my future. Condensed into ink. I put it in my pocket. It was leverage. By making it payable only to the hospital, I had turned it into a ghost. My parents could see it, but they could not touch it. It was useless to them for anything other than saving Grandma. They could not use it to pay Mateo or lease a Porsche. It had exactly one function. Step 1 complete. Next, I drove to a print shop and logged into the USCIS website. I pulled up the affidavit form for identity theft and marriage fraud. I filled in the fields with clinical precision. Roxanne Miller, flagged for coerced marriage scheme. I detailed Mateo's name and the financial transaction. I stated clearly that any marriage license filed under my name involving this man was fraudulent. I did not click submit. Once submitted, the investigation is automatic. I did not want Mateo deported yet. I needed him in the room. I printed the pending submission review page. It looked terrifying. It was a poison pill. If Mateo married me, he wasn't buying a green card. He was buying a federal audit and a one-way ticket home. Step 2, complete. Finally, I sat in my car and downloaded a high-end dictation app used by legal stenographers. It synced in real time to an encrypted cloud server. Even if Lawrence smashed my phone, the audio would be safe. I ran a test. I set the phone on the passenger seat. Face down. Testing. Extortion. I checked the server. The file was uploaded. Time-stamped. Admissible. I checked my watch. 11:30. I checked my lipstick in the rearview mirror. I looked calm. I looked like a woman about to sign a marriage license. They had no idea I wasn't bringing a bride to the table. I was bringing the executioner. The conference room was on the 25th floor, sterile and expensive. My parents were already there. Lawrence leaned back in a leather chair, swirling sparkling water like scotch. Raina sat next to him, upright and tense. Across from them sat Mateo. Younger than I expected, slicked back hair, expensive suit. He didn't look desperate, he looked entitled. He tapped a gold pen against the prenup. I walked in with Mr. Vance. Vance was a short, unassuming man in a gray suit. He looked like a notary. He did not look like a ruthless family law litigator. Who is this? Lawrence narrowed his eyes. Mr. Vance, I said, sitting opposite Mateo. My witness. I am not signing without one. We don't need witnesses. Mateo said smoothly. This is a simple transaction, Roxanne. Like buying a car. You sign, I pay, everybody goes home. I am sure you see it that way, I said. I placed my phone face down on the table between us. I hit record. On the hidden screen, the timer started. The upload icon flashed green. Is that necessary? Raina asked. I am expecting a call from the hospital. I lied. Lawrence laughed. She won't get worse, because you are going to save her. Right now. See? Being a good daughter isn't so hard. Just sign. Mateo wires us the rest. And Grandma gets her surgery. Everyone wins. Everyone wins, I repeated. You get your visa. My parents get their $40,000. And I get the satisfaction of being sold? You get to be a hero, Lawrence said. Don't ruin the moment. Mateo pushed the prenup toward me. Sign here. The wire transfer is set up. Once the ink is dry, the money moves. I looked at my parents. They were smiling the smile of predators who had cornered their prey. They thought I was beaten. I smiled back. A razor-thin expression. First, I said softly. Show me the money. Mateo rolled his eyes and showed me his banking app. $40,000. Pending transfer. Good, I said. Now, let me show you mine. We are doing this for family, Raina said, her voice dripping with fake warmth. Roxanne knows her duty. Duty, I said. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the check. I smoothed it out on the mahogany table and slid it to the center. This is a certified cashier's check for $55,000. I said clearly. Lawrence's eyes lit up. He reached for it. Excellent. Mateo, you can wire the difference. Read the payee, Dad, I interrupted. He froze. St. Jude's Cardiac Center? What is this? That is for the hospital, I said. Paid in full from my savings. Grandma is safe. Her surgery is covered. The leverage you were holding over my head, her life is gone. The silence was absolute. Lawrence realized he could not cash it. It was money that existed solely to save the woman he was holding hostage. But, Raina stammered, we had a deal. The money goes to us. No, I said. The deal was that I marry him to save Grandma. I just saved Grandma, so I do not need to marry him. I turned to Mateo. He sensed the shift, but didn't understand the trap yet. Mateo, I said, I have one more document for you. I slid the USCIS printout across the table. This is a self-reporting affidavit to Immigration Services, I explained coldly. I have flagged my own Social Security number for marriage fraud monitoring. If you marry me today, your visa application will be automatically audited. They will look at everything. Your bank accounts. Your relationship with my father. Mateo picked up the paper. Pending submission. Fraud alert. You will not get a green card, I said. You will get a deportation order. I leaned forward. My parents took your deposit knowing I would never agree. They sold you a defective product, Mateo. They committed fraud against me, but they also scammed you. Mateo dropped the paper. His face turned violent purple. He stood up, knocking his chair over, and pointed at Lawrence. You told me she was on board. You told me this was done. She is lying, Lawrence shouted, panic cracking his voice. She is bluffing. We have the money. You do not have the money, I said. You spent it on a boat. Shut up, Lawrence screamed, lunging for my phone. I would not do that, Mr. Vance said. His voice was deep and calm. Who are you? Lawrence snarled. You are just a notary. I am not a notary, Vance said, placing his business card on the table. I am Miss Roxanne's attorney, and you should know that for the last 15 minutes, your daughter's phone has been recording this entire meeting to a cloud server. Raina gasped. You have confessed to spending the $60,000 deposit, Vance continued. You have confessed to coercing your daughter into a fraudulent marriage by withholding medical care. That is felony extortion and conspiracy to commit visa fraud. Since you crossed state lines, we are looking at federal charges. Lawrence slumped back, looking like a man watching his house burn. But I was looking at Mateo. Mateo turned to my father, his voice shaking with rage. You spent my money? No, Lawrence squeaked. It is invested. I want it back, Mateo said. Right now. I need a few days. You have 24 hours, Mateo said. Or I call my associates in Jersey. And they do not use lawyers. My parents were trapped between the law and a loan shark. They were broke and exposed. Raina looked at me, tears streaming. Roxanne, please, you have the check. You can help us. We are family. I did help family, I said, standing up. There is a difference between justice and revenge, I told them. Revenge would be keeping that money. Justice is planting something new. I did not use my savings to pay your debts, Mother. I used it to buy Grandma's freedom. I invested in the only person who actually loved me. I turned to Vance. Give them the final paper. Mr. Vance slid the thick document across the table. This is a transfer of power of attorney and legal guardianship, I said. You are going to sign Grandma Leona's care over to me. Completely. You give up all rights to her estate and medical decisions. Lawrence looked at the paper, then at Mateo pacing behind him. He realized his position. If he refused, Vance sent the recording to the district attorney. If he signed, he lost control of his mother, but stayed out of handcuffs. He picked up the pen, his hand shaking. He signed. Raina signed next, sobbing out of self-pity. Done, Vance said. I picked up my folder. You sold me for $60,000, I said. I bought my freedom for $55,000. Keep the change. I turned to leave. Mateo stepped in front of me, blocking the exit, sweating and wild. You think you can just walk away? He hissed. Vance stepped between us, holding up a card. Touch her, and I hit send on the USCIS file. Your visa is revoked by morning. Your fight is not with her, Mateo. It is with the people who spent your money. Mateo calculated the odds. He stepped aside. As the glass door closed, the last thing I heard was Mateo screaming at my father, demanding the keys to the Porsche. 3 weeks later, the morning light in my new apartment is softer. I traded the studio for a 2-bedroom unit on the ground floor. It has a view of a small garden where Grandma Leona likes to sit and watch the birds. The surgery was a success. Her heart is strong. She is in the kitchen right now, humming while she peels apples. It is the most beautiful sound I have ever heard. The fallout for my parents was absolute. Without the leverage of Grandma's health, and with Mateo breathing down their necks, their house of cards collapsed. A for sale sign went up on the estate 3 days later. They sold it below market value for quick cash. The Porsche's gone. The country club membership revoked. Lawrence and Raina moved into a rental on the edge of town. They are living the life they always despised, ordinary and irrelevant, working to pay back a debt to a man who does not forgive. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from a new number. I pressed play. Roxanne, my mother's voice cracked. It's Mom. We are struggling. Your father is depressed. We just want to see Leona. We are still family. Please, call us back. I listened to the end. I did not feel anger. I did not feel guilt. I felt the indifference of a logistics manager looking at a resolved file. I pressed delete. Then I blocked the number. I walked into the kitchen and poured tea. Grandma looked up. Who was that, darling? Nobody, I said. Just a spam call. I took her hand. It was warm and alive. Here is the lesson I paid $55,000 to learn. Blood does not make you family. It makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. Respect makes you family. Safety makes you family. You are allowed to walk away from people who hurt you. Even if you share a last name. You are allowed to liquidate the liabilities in your life to protect your assets. My parents taught me that everything has a price. They were right. But they forgot that some things, like freedom, are worth paying for. I am Roxanne Miller. I am broke, I am tired, and I am living in a rented apartment. But for the first time in 29 years, I am free. If you believe real family is about love, not leverage, hit that subscribe button, and tell me in the comments, what's the most expensive lesson you've ever taught someone? I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are asking, why did she give them $55,000? Why didn't she just call the police on day one? Why did she wait so long to leave? It is easy to judge when you are watching from the outside. But if you have lived it, you know it is not that simple. Let's break down exactly why Roxanne stayed, and the brilliant tactical moves she used to finally get out. The psychology. The slot machine effect. First, we have to look at the why. Why do smart people stay with users? It is not because they are weak. It is because of a psychological concept called intermittent reinforcement, or the slot machine effect. Think about a slot machine. If you pulled the lever and lost 100% of the time, you would walk away immediately. But the machine is programmed to give you a small win every now and then, just enough to keep you sitting in the chair. Toxic families work the same way. They treat you like garbage, but then they give you one nice dinner or one moment of praise. That tiny crumb of hope keeps you pulling the lever, waiting for the jackpot of love that is never going to come. Roxanne wasn't stupid. She was conditioned. The moment she won was the moment she stopped playing the game and realized the machine was rigged. The strategy. Financial self-defense. Now, let's look at the how. Roxanne didn't just leave. She executed a hostile takeover of her own life. She used 3 specific strategies that you can use in business or family disputes. Number 1 is the restricted asset. Notice she did not hand her father a bag of cash. She used a certified cashier's check, made out only to the hospital. Scammers and manipulators hate restrictions. They want liquid cash they can control. By restricting the funds, she ensured her money solved her problem, saving Grandma without funding her parents' lifestyle. Number 2 is the poison pill. This was the USCIS document. In negotiation, if you are the weaker party, you have to make yourself dangerous to eat. By flagging her own identity for fraud, she turned herself into a liability. She made it legally impossible for Mateo to use her. She didn't have to fight him physically. She defeated him with paperwork. Number 3 is the buyout. This is the hardest pill to swallow. She lost $55,000. That is a lot of money. But in business, sometimes you have to pay a kill fee to end a bad contract. Roxanne realized that her parents were a bad investment. She paid the money not to help them, but to buy the rights to her grandmother and to purchase her own freedom. She treated it like a severance package for bad employees. The verdict. Here is the bottom line. You cannot change people who are committed to using you. You can only change your access to them. Your bank account, your mental health, and your time are finite resources. Stop investing them in people who view you as an inventory item. You are the CEO of your own life. If the people around you are dragging the company down, it is time to issue a pink slip. If you have ever had to pay a high price for your peace of mind, tell me your story in the comments below. I want to hear how you got out. And hit that subscribe button for more strategies on how to survive the sharks. Stay smart.